This is a coffee table. This is actually 8 foot long, and I'm going to explain why in just a moment. And it's 2 feet wide, and that's obvious because the tile are 12 inches, right? And then the 8 foot, you know, because there's 4 tile going across. So the ease of which one of these tables are built and to be flush on the top. Sometimes people are a little confused about how you get one of these tables flush on the top, and it's very, very easy. Basically, you're building a frame box. So these are 2x6s, and the 2x6s wrap around. Of course, the wood really doesn't matter. You could use 2x12 or, you know, whatever. I'm sorry, these aren't 2x6s, these are 1x6. But again, the wood size doesn't really matter. You can make it any way you want. I just happen to use the 1x6. And so once you build this box, once you build this framing, the 4 pieces, and just nail or screw it on the side here on all 4 sides, then you're going to put the legs in. In this case I used 2x4s, but again, it doesn't matter. You could use 4x4, you could use any type of wood you want for the legs, but of course they'll have to be even. So the 4 legs would actually get recessed. I'm going to see if I can show it from the bottom. Get a flashlight. So the legs will be recessed. So if you look at that one there, it's actually attached to the 2 boards, and once it's attached, it's already recessed down for the thickness of the plywood. See, the plywood is the sub base. So whatever the plywood is and whatever the tile thickness is, let's say the plywood is 3/4 inch, which I believe it is, and then you have another 3/8 or 1/4 inch of tile, and then you have a little mastic you got to put on there, then you're looking at 3/4 plus another 1/4, you got an inch. So these legs are recessed down an inch prior to the plywood being put on. And once the plywood is put on, if you look on here, below here, so the plywood is put on, and the plywood is attached by virtue of the 4 legs. These little cross supports weren't really needed. I kind of put it in there as an afterthought, and that's why they weren't 45. They should have been really 45 on both sides, but it doesn't really matter. They're there kind of, as I said, as an afterthought for a little stability. But then the plywood goes on and it gets attached, and the plywood happens to be an 8x4 piece that I cut in half to make it 2x8, which is a perfect size for the tile. And then of course there's always an option of putting hardy backer or backer board onto the top of the plywood if you want to. I don't really see the purpose, and I didn't have access to it when I built this table. So what I did is I just spread out some mastic. You don't even need thin set. Mastic is good enough to put on here. It will definitely stick. And then you just set the tile same as you would, you know, any other type of tile on any other type of surface. But again, you know, you really have to do the math to make sure that you have enough room for the grout lines, right? So it's not only the tile size going across, but also the grout lines to be included prior to cutting your plywood, so that it all lines up. Then the tile gets put on with the mastic, and it becomes flush with these edge pieces. And then when it's dry, all you simply do is grout, or you can use caulking if you want. I believe on here I did use caulking, if I'm not mistaken. And that's it. It's a very, very simple thing that a DIYer could probably do, I'm going to guess, in a weekend. It took me probably 3 hours, about 2 or 3 hours to build this thing. But you could also do one of these. This is a kitchen table, and so I kind of did the same type of process, but I used this little border tile going around, and then I decided to do these tile at a 45 all the way around. And it's the same process, except I think I used 2x4. That's not a 2x4. Anyway, it doesn't really matter, but that wood got used as the same framing around, and then I used 2x4s as the legs, same as I did with coffee tables. So you can build your own tiled table of any sort doing it that method.